That hesitation move, the fadeaway, it's almost perfect, but his eyes, MJ paused mid-instruction, watching the boys sink another effortless jumper. They look a million miles away, like he's haunted. What ghost haunted a kid with talent? This blinding, the familiar echoing sounds of bouncing basketballs, squeaking sneakers, and youthful shouts filled the gymnasium of the West Side Chicago Youth Center. Michael Jordan surveyed the scene, a rare, unannounced visit intended to surprise and inspire the kids participating in the summer basketball camp. He enjoyed these moments, the raw energy, the unfiltered passion for the game that reminded him of his own beginnings. His eyes, however, kept being drawn back to one particular player, Darius. Maybe 13, 14 years old, lean, wiry frame, moved with an extraordinary, almost preternatural grace on the court. His skills were phenomenal, leagues ahead of the other kids his age. Crossovers smooth as water, a first step that exploded past defenders, and a jump shot, with a release point and follow-through that were eerily reminiscent of Jordan's own signature style. He played with a quiet, focused intensity that was captivating. But it was off the court, during drills or water breaks, that the dissonance struck Jordan. While other kids joked, jostled, or eagerly listened to the coaches, Darius would retreat, into himself. He'd stand slightly apart, his gaze distant, a profound, unshakable sadness clouding his young face. He rarely smiled, even after making a spectacular play. He responded to praise with a polite, almost imperceptible nod, his eyes, immediately dropping to the floor or scanning the gym exits, never quite connecting. It wasn't shyness, it felt deeper, heavier, like a shadow clinging to him that the bright gymnasium lights couldn't dispel. "Kid's got game, doesn't he?" Coach Miller, the camp director, remarked, following Jordan's gaze towards Darius during a water break. Miller was a former college player himself, with a good eye for talent, and a weary understanding of the challenges facing kids in this neighborhood. "Best natural talent I've seen come through here in years. Works relentlessly hard, too. Always the first one here, last one to leave." "But," Jordan prompted, sensing the unspoken qualifier. Miller sighed, lowering his voice. "But he's distant, walled off. Carries something heavy, you can feel it. Lost his dad young, about 5-6 years ago, I heard. Tragic circumstances, neighborhood violence kind of thing. Lives with his mom, she works double shifts. Basketball seems to be his only outlet, his sanctuary. But even here, he keeps everyone, even the other kids, at arm's length. Lost his dad young. Tragic circumstances. That explained some of the sadness, the premature gravity. But it didn't fully account for the intense wall Darius erected, the almost painful avoidance of connection, especially noticeable when Jordan himself was near. Intrigued and moved by the boy's obvious talent coupled with his visible burden, Jordan made a point of working with Darius's group during the next drill session. He wanted to offer encouragement, maybe share some pointers, see if he could break through that reserve even slightly. "Nice footwork on that drive, Darius," Jordan commented after the boy executed a flawless reverse layup. "Keep that pivot foot anchored. Gives you more power." Darius froze momentarily, clearly startled by the direct address from the legend himself. He nodded quickly, murmuring a barely audible, "Yes, sir," his eyes fixed firmly on the scuff marks, on the court near Jordan's iconic sneakers. He didn't look up. Jordan tried again later during a shooting drill. "Good rotation on that shot," he praised, as Darius swished another three-pointer. "But try keeping your elbow tucked just a fraction more on the release." Consistency. Again the same reaction. A brief flicker of acknowledgement, maybe even suppressed pride, instantly masked by that impenetrable reserve. "Thank you, sir," Darius mumbled, retrieving his ball and moving immediately to the back of the line, deliberately avoiding further interaction. It felt like more than just being starstruck or shy. It felt like Darius was actively avoiding connecting with him, Michael Jordan, the very player whose moves he emulated so flawlessly on the court. Why? The question lodged itself in Jordan's mind, a dissonant chord beneath the surface of the inspiring camp atmosphere. He watched Darius move through the rest of the drills. The effortless grace on the court contrasted sharply with the profound sadness that settled back over him the moment the ball left his hands. It was like watching two different people, the soaring athlete and the haunted young man. Jordan thought back to his own youth, the challenges he faced, the role models who helped him, the sanctuary the game provided. He felt a strong pull to reach this kid, to understand the source of his pain, to offer support beyond just basketball tips. Maybe, he reasoned, sharing a piece of his own experience might create an opening. During the final cool-down session, as the kids gathered in a loose circle, Jordan spoke briefly about dedication, perseverance, and the importance of using basketball not just as a game, but as a tool to navigate life's difficulties. "We all face challenges," Jordan said, his gaze sweeping the group but subtly lingering on Darius, who sat slightly outside the main circle, staring intently at his own worn basketball shoes. "Times when things feel heavy, overwhelming. Basketball, this court, it can be a place where you leave that weight behind, even just for a little while. It was for me. Helped me process things I saw, things I went through." He trailed off slightly, letting the thought hang. It was at that moment Darius looked up. His eyes met Jordan's directly for the first time all afternoon. The usual sadness was still there, stark and deep. But mixed with it now was something else, something sharp, almost accusatory. A flicker of painful recognition that had nothing to do with celebrity worship. Darius held Jordan's gaze for a long, unnerving second, then spoke, his voice low but carrying clearly in the suddenly quiet gym. "Yeah," he said, the word heavy with unspoken meaning. "But some things, some nights, you don't forget. You see things, even if you're just driving by, just passing through, you don't forget." He dropped his gaze abruptly back to his shoes, his body tensing as if regretting the outburst. The cryptic words hung in the air, thick with implication. Driving by? Passing through? Why would Darius say that to him? What night? What had Jordan supposedly seen? A cold dread, sharp and unexpected, pierced through Jordan's concern. The boy's words, the specific phrasing, triggered a fragmented, deeply buried memory. A chaotic night years ago, leaving the old Chicago stadium after a late game or practice. The flashing lights, red and blue, cutting through the darkness a few blocks away. Police cars angled awkwardly, sealing off a side street. Yellow tape fluttering. A crowd gathered, hushed whispers. Paramedics working urgently on someone, on the sidewalk. Jordan hadn't stopped. He'd been tired, focused on getting home, cocooned in the bubble of his high-profile life. He'd registered the scene peripherally, another tragic incident in a city rife with them, filed it away as background noise, and driven on, perhaps slowing slightly as he passed the cordon. He hadn't thought about it since. Until now. Darius's words, his haunted eyes, the specific mention of driving by. It couldn't be a coincidence. This was the midpoint revelation, the devastating connection. Darius wasn't just sad because his father died tragically. He was sad, and perhaps conflicted, resentful even, because he somehow knew, or believed, that Michael Jordan, his hero, had been present at the periphery of that tragedy, however unknowingly, however passively. Had Darius been there too? Had his mother told him? Had he seen news footage later that maybe, just maybe, caught a glimpse of Jordan's distinctive car, rolling slowly past the chaotic scene? The weight of the realization pressed down on Jordan. He felt a sudden, urgent need to confirm, to understand the specifics of that night he had so readily dismissed and forgotten. He excused himself briefly, stepping outside the gym into the relative quiet of the hallway. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through his contacts, finding the number for Marcus Thorne, the retired head of his personal security detail during his playing days in Chicago, a man known for his discretion and deep connections within the CPD. "Marcus?" Jordan began, keeping his voice low. "Strange question, possibly a long shot. Need you to check something very discreetly." Think back maybe 5, 6 years ago. An incident near the old stadium, late night. Possible shooting, bystander involved. I might have driven past the scene afterwards. Remember anything? Marcus Thorne was silent for a moment, likely accessing his own mental archives, notoriously detailed. "Yeah, boss, I remember something like that." Thorne's voice came back, cautious. "Nasty business. Drive-by, wrong place, wrong time. Caught an innocent guy walking home from his second job. Name was Jones. Marcus Jones, I think." "Yeah. Died. At the scene. Left behind a wife and a young kid. Real young kid saw some of it, I heard. Messy. Marcus Jones. Darius's father." The confirmation hit Jordan like a physical blow. He remembered the name now from Coach Miller's brief mention. Young kid saw some of it. Darius. And Jordan himself, driving past, a fleeting figure on the edge of the worst night of their lives. He understood the boy's haunted eyes now, the conflicted feelings, the wall of silence. How could Darius reconcile idolizing the basketball legend with the image, however inaccurate or unfair, of that same legend driving past the scene of his father's death, seemingly indifferent? How could he approach his hero when his hero was unknowingly tangled in the threads of his deepest trauma? Jordan ended the call, leaning against the cool cinder-block wall of the hallway, taking deep breaths. He felt a profound sense of shame, not for causing the tragedy, but for his ignorance, his detachment, his failure to even register the human cost of the violence he'd peripherally witnessed that night. He had driven on, back to his privileged life, while Darius's world shattered on that sidewalk. He walked back into the gym, his expression grim but resolved. The camp was wrapping up, kids gathering their gear. Darius was already near the exit, backpack slung over his shoulder, eager to escape. Jordan intercepted him gently, placing a hand lightly on his shoulder. Darius flinched but didn't pull away this time. "Darius," Jordan began, his voice thick with emotion he didn't try to hide. "Can we talk for a minute? What you said earlier about driving by." Darius looked up, his eyes filled with a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. Pain, anger, confusion, and still undeniably, a flicker of the hero worship he couldn't entirely extinguish. He nodded mutely, bracing himself. They found a quiet corner away from the lingering coaches and parents. Jordan didn't make excuses. He didn't try to minimize his peripheral presence that night. He simply acknowledged it. "I remember that night. Now, Darius," he said softly, meeting the boy's gaze directly. "I remember the lights, the chaos. I drove past. I didn't understand what had happened until just now. I didn't know it was your father." He paused, letting the weight of the admission settle. "I can't imagine the pain you and your mother have carried. And I am so deeply sorry that my presence, however unintentional, is tied to that memory for you." Darius stared at him, tears welling up, finally spilling over, tracking paths down his face, washing away some of the dust and grime. He didn't speak for a long moment, just let the tears fall. The years of suppressed grief, confusion, and misplaced resentment finally finding an outlet. "I saw your car," Darius finally whispered, his voice choked. "On the news later, they showed the street blocked off, and your car, just driving past slow, like you were looking. Mom said you were probably just curious. Didn't know. But—" He couldn't finish the sentence. The confusing intersection of his hero and his trauma, too difficult to articulate. "But it hurt," Jordan finished for him quietly. "Seeing me there, even just passing by, connected to the worst moment of your life. I understand." He didn't offer easy platitudes or false promises. He simply sat with the boy's pain, acknowledging its validity, acknowledging his own unwitting role in the complex tapestry of Darius's grief. "Your father," Jordan continued softly, "from what Coach Miller said and what I saw on the court today, he'd be incredibly proud of the young man you're becoming, proud of your strength, your talent." He looked directly at Darius. "That talent, it's special, but it shouldn't have to carry all this weight alone." He then made an offer. Not just generic support, but something specific, personal. "I can't change what happened that night, Darius, but I can be here now, if you'll let me. Not just for basketball, though we can definitely work on that fadeaway," he offered a small, tentative smile, "but to talk, to listen, maybe help connect you and your mom with resources, grief counseling, support groups, whatever might help ease the load, even just a little." He offered mentorship, not as a superstar descending from on high, but as someone who understood pressure, understood loss in his own way, and recognized a profound, unexpected connection forged in tragedy. Darius looked at Jordan, truly looked at him, seeing not just the icon, but the man acknowledging his pain, offering genuine support without demanding forgiveness or forgetting. He wiped furiously at his tears with the back of his hand, and after a long hesitation, gave a single shaky nod. It wasn't absolution. It wasn't a magic fix. The sadness in Darius's eyes wouldn't vanish overnight. But it was a beginning. A crack in the wall he'd built so high. A chance to start untangling the complex knot of admiration and grief. The hidden truth wasn't just about a father's tragic death. It was about the unexpected, unseen ways lives intersect, the weight of presence, even in absence, and the potential for healing when profound, painful connections are finally acknowledged and met with compassion instead of avoidance. How do the public moments of celebrated figures unknowingly cast long shadows on the private lives and tragedies of ordinary people, creating ripples of impact that last for years? What responsibility do we all have to acknowledge the unseen connections and unintended consequences that link our lives together, especially across divides of fame, fortune, or circumstance? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more stories exploring the surprising intersections of life, loss, and the search for understanding.